South Carolina lands their first commitment out of the transfer portal. Former Oklahoma receiver Jayden Gibson. A lot of talent, a lot of size, a lot of upside, a little bit of concern. We talk about his promise with the Gamecocks with the guys from Locked On Sooners. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler of the Locked On Gamecocks podcast, part of the Locked On Sports Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in America. Thanks to you guys. We got a good episode for you today, and it is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Listen, download the Game Time app. I'm not going to say it again. I probably will, but I shouldn't have to. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We've got a good episode for you. It is episode 2 on this beautiful Monday, and we are talking about South Carolina's first commit, former Oklahoma wide receiver, Jaden Gibson. We're going to be joined by Jay Smith from Locked On Sooners and talk about what it means, the upside, and all that's there, because it's a very, very intriguing prospect. So, without further ado, let's bring on Jay. All right, without further ado, one of my favorite people, not just in the Locked On podcast world, but also just in general. Great person to share a beer with, and also share some insight into Oklahoma football. And really, just one of the more intriguing prospects. It's the only prospect South Carolina has got from the portal, but I still feel like that sentiment will stand here in a couple weeks. Jay Smith, how the hell are you, first and foremost?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. As usual, like I said, one of my favorite humans to grab a beer with and yell with. So it's always a great time, man.
Yeah, man. So South Carolina has, you and I were talking off air, and you were like, yeah, it's been crazy because it's portal combat. We talk about it every year. It gets crazier and crazier every year. Last year, I think 2,700 kids first day. This year, 3,700. You got about 31% of the total players in the entire country that are in the portal. That number's probably risen now because it's been several days since then. Oklahoma's had a little bit different start because you guys have had, I think you said 6 or 7 guys today that have committed. Not been the case at South Carolina, one player,
Okay.
but it's a very intriguing prospect. Like right off the bat, you saw Jaden Gibson in the portal. I want to hear your immediate thoughts of that, from what it means from a roster loss for Oklahoma, but then also Jaden Gibson to South Carolina with a new offensive coordinator in Lenore Sellers. Tell me all the feelings.
Yeah, so seeing him go in the portal was kind of expected. So 2022, he got here. So he's been here since Brent Venables has been head coach, and he's gone through 3 different offensive coordinators, unfortunately, but doesn't really matter. Comes in from Florida, huge kid, 6'5", legitimately 6'5". Like, he's big. He's probably closer to 200 now. And in 23 is when he broke out. Like, you go back in 23, we played in the Big 12. You can see some of the games, like from the TCU game where he caught the ball, was dragging guy to the end zone, and just throws his finger up for the touchdown because the dude had no chance of even tackling him. It was beautiful. And it was Iowa State. He caught a pass across the middle. He ran over 2 dudes and got into the end zone. So this past season, I was stoked. I'm like,
yeah,
because he tore his meniscus and actually patella tendon. He tore his patella tendon in fall camp.
Yeah,
and we're like, damn it! This was supposed to be when he was going to be his year in 2024. He was one of the 6, wide receivers that went out, and so coming back around, we were expecting this season for him to get back healthy and be ready, but he had a setback in the spring. And it just never came back to where he was at the point of getting in. He basically got lost in the shuffle of the rotation. I was hurt because the dude's not only fast, he's strong, and he is in a great job of making his hands better. Yeah. Like, he'll catch the ball at the high point, he'll catch it low, and he holds it like for dear life.
Right.
And that's something that he had been practicing on because his freshman year, he had like 3 drops. He had 1 catch for 12 yards, but he had 3 drops.
Yeah.
And they were right there. And so his second year, his redshirt freshman year at 23, he changed that. He focused on that, and he was bringing them in like a beast. And so because of that, I was like, we got to get this 6'5" behemoth going. And unfortunately, he just couldn't stay healthy. Now, I heard he's healthy now, and he's actually doing drills, but seeing him go in the portal, kind of sad, but at the same time, I get it. Sometimes you need a change of scenery.
Yeah. I think I don't consider it a liability. I think receiver is a position where you can have as many bodies as possible. I mean, you saw it kind of this year with South Carolina.
Yes.
Like, listen, if I've seen this from South Carolina fans that have said, well, you never know, man, it could be a liability if he gets hurt. Let me introduce you to someone that covers a team that had their top 6 receivers go out 2 years ago. We talked about how bad the offense was in year 1 for Oklahoma. And it's like, and I remember screaming from the top of the rafters. I'm like, guys, you and I are going to play receiver this year for Oklahoma.
I was offered a scholarship when I went to the sideline. Like, hey, man, you still got some eligibility, dog? You still got some? Because
that's how bad it was, man. It's like, and I tell you what, there's certain things with receivers, especially at this position, that you see here Al Davis say all the time. You can't coach speed, can't beat speed, like what? You can't teach speed, like whatever that sentiment would be. You cannot teach 6'5", and no. Being someone that has 6'5" with speed, on the same field at the same time, potentially with a guy like Nick Harbor, who's 6'5", 230, and has maybe the fastest player in the entire country when he gets going. I mean, I think. Do you look at this, and if you're talking about like boom or bust, sure. If you want to look at it like that and say, well, he could be great, he could be awful. I think you're at like it's nothing but positives, because look at what you had this year at receiver. Were there a bunch of guys at receiver this year that like all of a sudden like they had a bunch of talent that came in? Sure. The right. Receiving class and the freshmen you brought in, but we didn't see that translate to the field. Like big picture, I think you look at this, Jay, and you're like, all right, well, if he doesn't do well, he doesn't do well. Mazeo Bennett was nowhere this year. I mean, Jared Brown didn't do much of anything, but you saw it firsthand. If the boom from the boom or bust is a boom, like how big of a season do you think he could have?
He can be 40 to 50 catches, 700-800 yards. Easy. I mean, his year when he started to break out as like the 4th receiver on the roster, 14 catches, 375, 5 touchdowns. The big one is in 14 catches, he had 5 touchdowns.
Right.
He's going to catch it deep, or he's going to run people over and get into the end zone.
Yeah.
That is the strength of his ability. So if you have the ability to target him often, he'll go up in the air and catch it. He'll go to the ground and catch it. He'll outrun dudes and catch it. He has all of that. So to me, I don't think he's a 1,000-yard receiver, but I do think he'll get damn near close.
Yeah. I tell you what, too, I'm thinking like one of the things too with Harbor, I kept waiting to see near the red zone was jump balls to Harbor, because he's 6'5". It's not really his game. He's not a 40-inch vert type thing, I don't think. Maybe he's a freak athlete, so maybe he is. But it's like a lot of times what you would see with a guy like that, especially with that speed and that size, you're gonna have to shade a safety over that way or bracket coverage to somebody like that, because you cannot get them one-on-one, especially with the DB, who oftentimes you're starting to see some taller ones now, but like 6 feet, 5'11". You can't bracket 2 sides of the field. That's not how brackets work, I'm pretty sure. Not a big bracket guy, but also I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. I think when you look at what this money's going forward, the last thing I want to say is, and I don't want you guys to have to go back and talk about the times of the Big 12. Maybe they were better. I think they were. You guys had a fantastic year this year, but you're familiar with this name from the Big 12, Kendal Briles, OC that the South Carolina brought in. What do you think with a guy? And I know you were high on Sellers just like I was going into the season. Maybe I don't know how you feel about him now.
I still like him.
And I think there's tremendous upside there. What do you think this guy brings to a Kendal Briles offense, and what it could look like with him and Sellers as well?
If I'm correct, Briles does a lot of, it's like a bear raid, I guess you could say, like air raid. It's spreading people out.
Bracket.
Bracket. There you go. Bracket. So yeah, we'll go with that. No,
a lot of motion.
He'll give Briles the ability to move dudes around. Because like you mentioned, if you got Nick Harbor on this side, and even what Lenore Sellers' little brother, Little Sellers over there, Jaden. Jaden on the other side, right? Or even in the slot, you can move dudes around, and Jaden can play both sides of the ball. He was really good on the slot for us that year in 23. So imagine a 6'5" slot dude, right?
Yeah.
That just adds even more dynamic to what the offense should do, plus going across the middle. I know that South Carolina usually has a pretty solid tight end setup, so him being in the slot will probably call. I mean, hell, imagine him and Harbor on the same side.
Right.
Who you gonna stop? Who you gonna keep your attention on? And then put little Sellers right there next to him and run a flood on that side. Dog, you're screwed. Yeah. You're screwed. And I think Sellers can go ahead and hit him on that back shoulder because I know he has the ability. But no, I think this gives him a weapon that he will feel like is reliable.
Right.
Because he can catch. He's very strong with his hands. Catching is not something I'm ever concerned about him. I just want to see him healthy. I've heard he's healthy. Heard he's running like he used to. He looks good. So if that's the case, y'all got yourselves a nice little steal, a nice little investment, a penny stock after dealing with all those injuries.
Right.
That could boom into a couple bucks, and all of y'all will be happy with this performance.
I love it, dude. I appreciate you, man. In general, I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, I guess we'll do this again sometime soon. Maybe if y'all got any more offensive linemen, maybe throw some of them this way as well.
Yeah, I'm working on it, right? I had a conversation with somebody. I said, hey, my guy Marler needs a O-lineman. Can we throw him a bone? So we'll see what we can do. But y'all fired y'all's O-line coach. So, yeah, I mean, I got a whole bunch of good stuff to work with over there. But, I appreciate you having me, my guy.
Absolutely, dude. Talk to you soon. Always love getting to spend time with my dude, Jay. But he failed to mention something that's even more important than Jayden Gibson. We're going to talk about it when we come back. Before we do, want to give a quick shout out to our friends at FanDuel. And I tell you what, guys, there's a ton going on right now. There's college basketball. There's NFL playoffs. There's still 3 more college football games in the semifinals and the national championship. But more importantly, how about Fridays with FanDuel? Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off every single weekend with the NBA Happy Hour. That's right. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action even starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern Time. 6 to 7:30 Eastern Time have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. All you have to do is open up the FanDuel app, and every single week there's something new. Boosts, bonuses, and surprises right at your fingertips. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before they tip off, check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour. Again, from every Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern, a little basketball, a little action, whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, and it's only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks for this. All right, so talking about South Carolina's first commit of the portal cycle, Jayden Gibson. And I think it's one of those things where if I'm being realistic, I can look at this and say, yeah, maybe it's a guy that produces very well. Maybe it's a guy that is just kind of run of the mill and we don't know what happens coming out of, a couple of years from now or at the end of next season. I think that's fine. I can sit here and try to tell you exactly what I hope happens. And I think we'll probably do that in this offseason. There's a lot to like. I love the idea of what Jay said about the flood concepts, so the short side of the field or even the wider side of the field when you have a guy like Jaden Sellers, a guy who's really good after the catch. When you still have so many key parts and pieces in the receiving core, I think that taking a flyer on this kid, which I'll tell you right now, I don't think that they went and spent crazy money on. Take a flyer on a kid that's a former really good recruit and has played well at this level in the Power 4 for a premier program like Oklahoma. It feels like a no-brainer. You need probably a body at that position. You can't have enough depth at receiver. I told you why. God forbid that happens to South Carolina, but you also kind of saw that's what happened at times in the offensive line this year. Sometimes you have a string of bad luck and a rash of injuries, and it all happens at one specific spot. Having depth at a spot like this cannot be dismissed. It's one of those things. It's just like the offensive line, defensive line. This is a position where you have guys that are going to rotate in sometimes 4 and 5 at a time, and you're going to need a lot of bodies there to get through the grinding and grueling part of a 12-game schedule at this level, especially going into 9 conference games next year. There's one thing he didn't bring up, though, and I'm kind of surprised. He kind of offhand mentioned it, but when you talk about what Jaden Gibson brings to the table, 6'5", 200, fast guy, but the thing is the explosiveness of what he does. He led the country in yards per catch in 2023. He led the country. 14 catches, right, on the year. That may not sound great, but I want you to put this in perspective. 14 catches on the year, and 5 of those 14 went for a touchdown. I'm pretty confident my math is correct on this. I believe 5 divided by 14 is 308, so 30%. Let me just check real quick. I'm wrong. My baseball percentages are getting the best of me. That means that 36% of his catches went for touchdowns that season. But the 14 catches for 357 yards is absurd. That means you are having an average of 26.8 yards per catch. 26.8 yards per catch on offense. Now, in the world of medicine, I don't think that he has suffered some injury that he will never be able to come back from. Obviously, he had the setback. He hasn't played in 2 years. When he gets on the field, I think it's one of those things where you could see somebody that could really, really take off. The other part of it is, one, now you've got a situation where you got a grown-ass man, which we love to see in this day and age of college football. It's literally what teams like Vanderbilt and Indiana have built their entire roster on. Now, I think he's a junior, technically, I think. But it's a guy that had back-to-back seasons where he didn't see the field. I'm sure he's rusty. I also feel like now you have a veteran presence that's been around the SEC and Power 4 level for an extended period of time, knows what it takes to win at a high-level program, like being around Oklahoma, and goes into a what do you call it, a receiving core where it's very, very youthful. Like there's a lot of really good, talented kids in this receiver room. Most of it's all very, very young. Nick Harbor is the eldest, and I think he might actually be younger compared to this guy. But similar size. He's not 230. But Nick Harbor, as explosive as he is, 20.6 yards per catch in this past season. That's really, really good. But in comparison, it's not even the 26.8. It compares probably best with how Delvon Campbell was last year for South Carolina in 2024. He averaged right at 26 yards per catch. He had 12 catches for 312 yards and 0 touchdowns. But being able to find the end zone, being able to have that kind of explosiveness. And here's the other thing, too. Now it's you have another guy on the field in an offense that has so much eye candy and an offense that tries to make the defense have to see and stop so many different things. It's very hard to figure out how you're going to stop that amount of size. It really is. I don't know if he is going to be a game breaker and be the best receiver out of this group. I would doubt that it happens. I think Nick Harbor's ceiling is still scratching the surface. And you also got a lot of talented guys on this roster that are coming back. I do think the idea that it might be a liability or the idea that it might be something that's like, oh man, what a bust. I think you're kind of playing with house money here. I can't imagine that you've got a guy that is being spent in the, if I'm being honest, I would say he's probably not getting even the top 40%, top 30% of the roster, what people are getting. Maybe he is. I could be completely wrong about that, but I doubt it coming off those injuries and being an ad like this. But it's still a guy that is a big time potential playmaker for an offense that needs it. And I think that you go get your receiver. I don't know if you really need much more at that position with what you already have. Maybe Kendal Briles said you take a flyer on somebody that has tremendous upside, or you get a proven commodity that kind of falls in your lap. That I don't know. Maybe one of those situations unfolds. I do think now you can start to focus on some of the other areas of need, and that is offensive line, that is defensive line, that is the secondary, running back, and mainly trying to figure out situations on how to open up more holes and protect up front. Now that you've got a guy like Jaden Gibson in the fold, you don't have to be as concerned with going out and making sure, hey, we got to get at least one body, right? Like you just don't have to be concerned. So this is a really, really good box to check, I think, for South Carolina. Now, what's the latest in the rest of the portal? I'll go over everything of what we've seen and what's left. Josiah Thompson, Campbell Vandiver is not a player that's of great concern. Since we last spoke, it's Boaz Stanley, Vandrevius Jacobs, Josiah Thompson. From an offensive line standpoint, we talked about this in the other episode as well. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of your 20 players from the offensive line. Now, several of those, at least 2 or 3, are players that aren't going to generate a ton of publicity or news because they're no-star recruits and they're no-stars in the portal. But it's still something you're going to have to figure out with the bodies up front. Now, the Josiah Thompson thing, we talked about that in the other episode that came out today as well. I don't think it's a huge concern in comparison to some of the other stuff for a number of reasons. You also are getting a visit on Tuesday about a guy we're going to talk about next. And it is a guy that I think has incredible home run hitting type of talent. So it's kind of speaking to the idea of, hey, if you get another one, if one falls in your lap that has genuine interest and mutual interest, then by all means, you're not gonna kick that person to the curb or anything like that, for lack of better phrasing. But a former Georgia receiver will be on campus on Tuesday. Could he be the second person in this class that commits? We'll talk about that right after this. All right, we're back with more Locked On Gamecocks. Before we get into the final part of the show, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Game Time. Guys, listen, there's so much stuff coming up, roaring, and there's plenty of stuff to do. But there's still also 3 more games in the college football season. Whether you're getting college basketball, college baseball, college football, if you want to go to the theater, if you want to go to a comedy show, concerts, any of that, Game Time has you covered. I tell you what, you go to the Game Time app that has the best customer service of anything I've ever experienced. Say you can't go to a show. That happened to me literally last year. Had to cancel, gave you 24 hours notice. Boom, you get your money back right away. Also, if you find seats in the same section that are better priced than another app, they will give you up to 100%, 110% price match guarantee. And the best thing of all, they show you exactly what the view from your seats will look like before you ever step in the building. It is awesome. Cannot tell you, in a day and age where customer service has fallen by the wayside from so many different types of businesses, but especially in the ticket industry, Game Time is doing it better than anyone else. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets or anything else with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, let's close out today's show with this. So, the latest from the portal that happened as we were recording this, the best name, like one of the best names in all of college football, former Georgia recruit, I believe former 4-star recruit, and played at Purdue this past year, Nitro Tuggle. Nitro Tuggle is going to be visiting South Carolina on Tuesday. He is 6'1", 195. This is going to shock you, right? But he's very fast. So with a name like that, probably makes sense that he would be. There's not a ton of info on him now. I will tell you this. Had some off-the-field issues. I believe he got in trouble with a speeding ticket, which doesn't really shock anybody when it comes from Georgia. But this is a he's from Indiana. He was a top 150 player in the country, 4-star recruit. I think he was the 24th ranked receiver out of high school, the 3rd ranked player in his state. Tall and lean frame. I'll give you the scouting report on right now. Fluidity and natural coordination of his movements. It shows up when he runs his routes. He's very, very smooth in and out of breaks, can change directions very, very easily. This is a guy that going into the end of the 2024 season with Georgia was being utilized partially because of some injuries, but also utilized in their game plan. Struggled a little bit, true freshman, in some big moments, but like was also a really, really key part of some of their game planning, even late in the season. I'm talking about in games like against Georgia Tech, Texas, and in the bowl game. Like he was a guy that was getting a lot of play for that offense when Carson Beck's last year in Athens. A guy that ended up transferring out, ends up going back home to Indiana, to Purdue. Listen, hard to disagree or hard to look down on any of these numbers. Finished this past year with 34 catches, 500 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That is a pretty good year, and is now looking to potentially come back to the SEC and go elsewhere in an offense that I think that this is one of the things that will become the norm when it comes to Kendal Briles offenses. Like, it, especially with the marriage of Kendal Briles to this school. TCU is fine. You're going to get you're in Texas, so you have 4 stars galore in your backyard at every single position imaginable. But it's also an offense that people want to play in. They know they're going to be able to put up a lot of big numbers. They know that they're going to be able to do a lot of fun, exciting stuff. It's also like the word that I just used that we skip over a lot in this game, fun. And Kendal Briles' offense is a lot of fun, and it creates mismatches more than anything for certain players of this kind of caliber and also of this type of skill set to get open and make defenses hurt and have to figure out ways to stop you in so many other different ways. I love the receiver room that South Carolina has. If they get Nitro Tuggle, I'll be very excited about it, because anytime you get a former Georgia recruit that left Georgia and is now potentially going to come play for you, I don't care what position it is, and I don't care if it sounds starstruck and oh my God, they had 4 or 5 stars. They went to, like, it's hard not to get excited about a former Georgia commit, because no one has recruited high school athletes better across the country in the last decade or so than Kirby Smart. That guy's got a pretty good eye for talent. If he thought this guy was good enough and he was able to get him out of Indiana to Georgia, and now you get to have him in year 3 when he's grown and played 2 full years of college football and started this past year, now you're getting a veteran guy with all of this other, hoopla out of high school. And now that is like a more of a seasoned vet with a full year of starting experience under his belt. I love that version. Like, love the upside if it's just a Georgia recruit. Love the fact that now he's a seasoned vet going into year 3 in college. So if they get this player, I would be very excited. I would also have to assume you're not going to hone in a ton of focus and effort on getting more and more receivers, because you don't need to have that many receivers, right? Like again, Nitro Tuggle is a guy that you're not going to turn down or look the other way at, because this is a really, really talented player. I mean, physically, again, turn on the film, watch how smooth he is in and out of breaks. I hate to say it, it reminds me a little bit, not from a vertical standpoint, but just for the way he gets in and out of breaks of Brian Rowe. But this is another guy that will be on campus amongst others that you're trying to land over the next couple of days. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully, tomorrow's episode, we did 2 today. We'll do 2 again tomorrow with some updates from the visits. But hopefully, we will have some good news. Also, hopefully, we'll have some good news on the basketball court tomorrow when they play at LSU. It's a winnable game. LSU's best player is out. 12-point loss to Vanderbilt earlier. It sounds crappy because you don't like losing to Vanderbilt in anything, but Vanderbilt is the highest ranked SEC team in the country right now, and is off to an incredible start. So just a lot there. Not the easiest start out of the gates for SEC play. But hopefully they can get back to 500 tomorrow on the road for Lamont Paris and the boys. That is all for today's episode. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate Jay for stopping by. And until next time, go Cox.